Professionalism. Nettie Koba has been a caregiver all her life, starting when she was a 14-year-old girl in Liberia. She's worked with a wide variety of individuals from very small children to aging seniors. Nettie now lives in the Philadelphia area and works for Special Care of Bucks County. She commutes 30 miles every day to care for her consumer, 93-year-old Robert. Robert's wife passed away 4 years ago. He now rents out the second-floor apartment of a home, and Nettie has become his lifeline.
When she comes in the morning, she gets breakfast, for one thing. She'll make the bed, and she'll help me with washing, getting my bath, and almost everything. Go to the store, like to the Acme, get food. She'll go to the drugstore. Any errands that I need, she does perform them for me. Yeah. She's very happy. She's very easy to get along with. If I want to laugh, all I do is tell her something about a boyfriend or something of hers and get her laughing. We get along very well.
You want second round?
Nettie's positive attitude, empathy, and understanding of Robert's needs are examples of being professional on the job.
This job, you have to be willing to do it. It have to be your passion. Because caring for people, think example is for your mother. If somebody harm your mother, how will you feel? So if you're caring for somebody else's parent, you have to know that what goes around, it comes around. And I love my mother. I don't want nobody to hurt her.
Nettie also provides companionship for Robert.
When I got this for him, then when I got it, then he lose interest in it. Mm-hmm. So after he lose interest in it, then we started getting the books, like from Barnes and Nobles, with something in it. Then he started cutting, making his own books. Then he lose interest. So then we got to the stems. But the stem wasn't going that fast, so he lose interest. So that the coins now he got hooked up with. 2 days ago when I came, I said, Bob, how you doing? Everything fine? He said, no one come to visit me, I'm just here alone. It's hard to be alone. It's hard to be alone in this house. No one come.
She remains compassionate, yet professional while caring for Robert.
She's my family. I see her more than anybody. And as I say, she's very easy to talk to. She's very easy to get along with.
Nettie is an outstanding caregiver, balancing compassion with professionalism. Professionalism means bringing a positive attitude to work, even if you're struggling with personal problems. Dressing professionally and showing up on time are essential components of your job. Other components of a professional caregiver are no cell phone use, punctuality, honesty, keeping your personal problems to yourself, wearing the proper clothing, presenting a clean, professional appearance, good communication, proper body language, and being sensitive to consumers' needs. Cell phone use. Ralph Trainer is the Executive Director of Abilities in Motion, an agency whose mission is to help people living with a disability determine their own independence and lifestyle. Ralph hires his own attendants outside of home care agencies and recalls an attendant's extreme unprofessionalism.
I have an overhead ceiling lift that we operate that gets me in and out of bed, into the shower, onto the commode, and so forth. Once I showed her how to use this lift, and she was taking me on it runs on a track, and it was taking me into the shower, she received a phone call on her cell phone, and with one hand she started text messaging her boyfriend, with the other hand operating the lift. I have to tell you, for the first few moments, I was absolutely stunned. I couldn't believe, A, that she could do this for two reasons. A, she had long nails. The other reason, though, why in the world would you even think about doing this when you're working with somebody in this position? I was truly startled. I was thinking, this is a Kodak moment for somebody to see.
Jean Langenbach is the Director of Community Care Center of the Northeast in Philadelphia and has this requirement for all of the attendants.
Cell phone usage can be a nightmare, and so we've just said no cell phones. And if you have to have them, they stay in the car or they're shut off. They're paying privately or being paid or as an employee. Certainly, you don't want your job interrupted by a phone call.
Marian Hollabaugh won the Pennsylvania Department of Aging's Direct Care Worker of the Year award.
Cell phones, I think most of us all got cell phones. I always have mine on vibrate. A client would never hear it. And I don't use cell phones on clients' time, but if I see that it's my agency calling, then that's different, then I will answer. But I always have my cell phone down on vibrate.
Texting, making personal phone calls, watching the caregiver's favorite TV show, and even preparing an easier meal versus what the person you work with has requested is a failure to care. Punctuality and honesty. For every job, an employee must fulfill two basic requirements: be punctual and honest. Punctuality shows that you are reliable and prepared. Honesty shows that you have integrity and you're an ethical person. As a caregiver, these requirements are important to get the job done correctly and to satisfy the needs of the person you work with. Lucy Novelli-Seeger, the owner of 2 Homestead Senior Care franchises in the Pittsburgh area, explains why it's important to always be on time.
From the beginning of the caregiver's experience with us, we do stress that they should always be on time and show up for their scheduled shifts when assigned. We really stress to them how important it is that the client depends on them and that this is really a profession and this is really an important part of them being able to make a difference in the older adult's life. If they don't show up on time, the client worries and they're not getting the service that they signed up for.
For a caregiver, punctuality requires that you always show up on time, never leave the consumer's home early, know the difference between personal time and work, provide timely reports when necessary, and keep your agency up to date when any changes occur. Many agencies have turned to technology to help track their caregivers.
And so we have put into place a telephony system. The telephony system is a time clock system where the caregiver, when they arrive at the home, they call from the client's home and it clocks them in that they arrived and that they're there on time. And that also they do that when they leave and they clock out, and they also punch in codes that allow them to tell about the activities they performed that day.
When it comes to honesty, caregivers must always fill out their timesheet so it corresponds with the work that they've performed. Call off only with prior notice and only if it is necessary. Caregivers must fill out their consumers' reports with accuracy and always deliver the care set forth by the consumer's care plan. Coping with personal problems. A fact of life is that everyone is going to have good days and bad days. Many of the bad days are beyond our control. How we deal with those bad days can make all the difference to the people we care for and the care we provide. Caregivers must not bring their personal problems into the home of the consumer.
I may care about you as a person, as an employee and so forth, but I'm not the sounding board for your daily problems at home, even in the workplace. That's for your friends and family.
Marianne Boland, Executive Director of Homemaker Home Health Aid Services in Beaver County.
I think sometimes it happens just when the aide becomes very comfortable and familiar with a client and they start self-evolving about their family, and sometimes just because you're interested in a person, the client may be asking questions and then it can get out of hand.
Never complain to the person you work with about your situation at home or at the home care agency. Treating the consumer's home as a workplace will help you respect the boundaries and remain considerate of the consumer's home, and the job that you're doing.
You have to make the consumer comfortable with you coming in and make them trust you, feel comfortable with you.
Proper attire. Put yourself in the mindset of people living with disabilities or an elderly person in their 80s or 90s. You're a stranger when you first enter their home, and your appearance should be professional.
We prefer they wear white scrubs. A lot of people go, but I still find this generation of 80 and 90-year-olds look at white as professional. But we'll allow them to wear the happy little scrubs, but we like the scrubs gotten away from dark pants and a white blouse, which is what we did 20 years ago.
They should look professional, no blue jeans or shorts, and we have company smocks, and they should look professional and not like your everyday person walking down the street. People need to know that you do work for a home health care agency.
While scrubs may be the most professional looking, they also serve another purpose.
The scrubs are easier to clean, maintain. They can just throw them in the washer. The stains can be washed out. They're not that expensive. We tell them where they can buy them. We even have a rack of rejected scrubs, that we hand out to the staff.
Ralph points out that an attendant's or caregiver's clothes should not pose a danger to them when doing their jobs.
I've had people show up with clothing I would say would be hazardous, like flowing sleeves and stuff like that. They may get caught or burned over the gas range. They may get caught in the equipment that I use.
Different agencies will have different requirements of what should be worn while performing care. Check with your agency on its specific dress code policy. Fingernails. It may be stylish to have long fingernails, but it is not professional. Fingernails could cause serious harm to the person you work with. It is easier to pick up and transmit infections if you have long nails, especially when dealing with multiple consumers. Even the most diligent hand washer will find it difficult to remove all the germs underneath the fingernails.
It can also poke the tender skin of a senior who's in their 80s and 90s that have no underlying fatty tissue and they just tear. So a sharp nail could easily cut their skin.
Short nails that are clipped regularly are mandated by most agencies. Jean Langenbach has a zero-tolerance policy for long nails.
The long nails with the finger painting, the nail paintings or whatever, I'll say to them, you'll have to cut them. And when you come back in to see me, I want them cut before we send you out to the field.
Jewelry, piercings, and tattoos are commonplace in society. For many of us, it's not unusual to see someone with a tattooed arm or a lip that is pierced. However, many of the consumers, primarily the elderly consumers, will likely see piercings and tattoos as disrespectful and, in some cases, frightening.
They make the clients, consumers, very uncomfortable and make me feel uncomfortable when I'm talking to someone and I see a stud flying out of a tongue, oh, wow. So I'm thinking if they're bothering me, what's it going to do to an 80 and 90-year-olds are very critical.
Your agency will have very specific guidelines on piercings and tattoos. Generally, most agencies require body piercings to be removed and visible tattoos to be covered by a long-sleeve shirt. These guidelines are in place to ensure that you look professional, which in turn will make the person you work with feel more at ease. What about jewelry?
Jewelry does carry infection as well, so it's just as well to keep it simple. A simple necklace would be fine, but we ask them a wedding band is fine.
Jewelry should be very minimal. We certainly don't want the caregiver to be injured by dangling jewelry that could get caught in something.
Modest jewelry Nothing too big of a stone that might cut the person if they're wearing their wedding bands. The watch is a necessary piece of equipment in many cases, but other than that, we ask that they keep it modest, keep it conservative.
Smells. Harsh smells from poor hygiene, smoking, and perfumes can be upsetting to the person you work with.
There are clients who are very sensitive to the smell of smoke, especially old smoke on a clothing. I don't think everybody would be offended by. As far as perfume, some people don't like the smell of perfume, and it can be overpowering, and some people may have some allergic reactions to that as far as if they have any allergies or things like that. We just think that it's appropriate not to have to wear it.
When you're in close proximity to the person you work with, there are many times, such as transfers, when your clothing and hair may come into contact with a consumer. Smelling clean but not overpowering will help improve the care experience. Communication. Addressing the consumer.
Mrs. Patterson?
From day one, you will need to establish certain boundaries and guidelines with the person you work with. The most important being, what does the consumer wish to be called? As a standard practice, address the consumer by their last name, such as Mr. Smith or Ms. Jones.
It's a learning process of what is it like to be a professional. And we really start out with calling them by their Mrs. Smith. If Mrs. Smith wants to have another name, then Mrs. Smith will say, this is what you can call me, and then they're permitted to do that.
It is disrespectful to call a consumer by a nickname, even with good intentions. It may seem endearing from your perspective, but the person you work with may not feel the same way.
I might be your sweetie for the moment, but personally, I would prefer you call me Ralph. I'm a very flexible person in many regards. However, I will not tolerate condescending dialogue or behavior, no more than I would from my own family members. I would appreciate if there are the nicknames and so forth, that's established between you and I in the get-go or over long term.
Consider them your parents or your, not even parents, someone you would meet in the store. You're not going to call them and go up, say, honey, I need to have this, although some of them do.
But we don't allow our clients to be called honey and sweetie and dear. I mean, those are terms of endearment, yes, they are, but certainly not on a professional level.
Body language. Communication goes beyond just speech. It also encompasses the way we present ourselves in a nonverbal fashion. Facial expression, posture, gesture, and eye contact are among some of the nonverbal forms of communication. How you look can say a lot about your dedication to your job and to the consumer.
How do you look when you walk into a home? You know, do you have is the uniform clean? Is it fit? Is it hanging off? You got a brown bag, lunch bag with you instead of walking with your bag that we give them with all of the papers in there and they're organized. It's a whole mindset that you have to teach people that sometimes have never had communication lessons. And so we start out with a nonverbal communication.
By always remaining conscious of the way you present yourself, you will become more professional in your appearance and help put the person you work with at ease. Sensitivity. A consumer or a person living with disabilities is not defined by their age or disability. Consider this. If you were a consumer, wouldn't you want your caregiver to be respectful of you?
An attendant that may come to me that pats me on the head. How are you doing today, Ralph? I find that very condescending. I find it condescending in their attitude.
Watch how you interact with the person you work with. What may seem like an innocent comment or gesture can be very hurtful and demeaning.
I think that if you were to talk to some of our individuals, our consumers, they would too. They would tell you. If they were totally alert and oriented, which many are, I do not want her back in here again. She belittles me, and just by how she's talking to me.
You have to respect their home. And be careful how you talk to them, because you might say something that they don't understand, or in their own language, it means something different.
Nettie Koba understands these things when she cares for Robert, and when it comes to providing care, Nettie has this one last tip.
It's the problem a lot of people face because they have no peace. If you don't have peace in your life, you cannot provide peace for somebody else. But if you got peace in your life, you provide peace for the person. The same peace you have, you want the person to have it too.
And how does this make Robert feel?
Well, I'm quite satisfied. I'm happy to be here. I certainly wouldn't want to be elsewhere. I wouldn't certainly want to be in a hospital, and I know I wouldn't want to be in any kind of a care, for elderly people.
Let me get that out of your way, Bob.
Remember, being a professional home care aide means no cell phone use, punctuality, honesty, keeping your personal problems to yourself, dressing properly, presenting a clean, professional appearance, good communication, proper body language, and being sensitive to consumers' needs.